anybody that wants to get into Baja racing, anybody that wants to drive a trophy truck, looks at Baja as the the NASCAR series, as the ultimate of the ultimate. Go to Mexico, go race Baja. Ultimately race the 1,000, but there's a path to that. Well, my name is Tracy Poole. I'm out of Bozeman, Montana, and the driver, and I guess the original guy that put together Vigilante Racing. And we got started on this. We embarked on this probably 5 years ago. So Vigilante Racing, everybody asks us, where did you come up with Vigilante Racing? Where did that come up? I grew up here in a little town, Ennis, Montana, and it's a tiny little town. At the time I was there, population, I think 700, maybe, just under 1,000 people. But Ennis, Montana is about 15 miles from Virginia City, Montana. And Virginia City is the infamous home and the source of a very famous story of the Vigilantes and where they originated. Big gold rush, obviously, in Virginia City in the late 1800s. And there were stagecoaches that would come in and they would bring in, money, and they would take gold out and they would exchange that type of thing. And, there was a string of robberies. These robberies started to become so consistent, and there was no schedule for the stage, so clearly there was some corruption. And the locals had enough. The government wasn't helping them out. And quite frankly, it turned out that the government might have been involved. And so they formed a group because they weren't being represented by their government, they weren't being protected, and they were just being robbed blind. And so they formed this group called the Vigilantes. And they formed the Vigilante Code. And the Vigilante Code was 3777. And there's the primary description or understood definition of that is that's the size and the depth of the box they're going to bury you in. 3 feet by 7 feet, 77 inches down. And they would put that, when they figured out who was all involved in this corruption, they would paint that on the door of their cabin or their tent or whatever they lived in. And that meant you had till sundown to get out of town. And if not, you'd be hanging from a rope. So our truck number is always a variation of that. So we're either 37 or 377 if we can get it, or we haven't been able to take 77 away from a certain guy named Robbie, but we'll work on that. But anyway, so that's where we come up with our numbers. And so, it's an interesting story. It's a great part of history, and we adopted that as our race team name, and we're proud of it. And we kind of adopted the Racing to Save America logic. We want, a little bit of awareness. We want people to be more involved. We want people to get more involved in the local level and at the federal level, because, I think we've got some runaways going on in DC, and it's time for everybody to start paying a lot more attention to what's going on. Yeah, so how to get into racing? Just always absolutely wanted to go fast in every vehicle I've ever been in since I was a little kid. And Baja racing, trophy trucks were something that, living up here in Montana were only things you'd catch glimpses of on the TV or on the news or maybe in a video game or something, but it always sounded like the coolest, funnest possible thing you could ever do. And, it was just always a dream of mine, and had no idea, how to get into it. And it's also, there's a big barrier to entry. It's not like big race teams just go around and say, hey, we want to hire drivers. It's a very expensive sport, and it's a pay-to-play sport for the most part. And so all my life I wanted to get in a spot financially that I could maybe try to do that. And so 5-6 years ago, a good friend of mine introduced me to Craig Potts in Phoenix, and he invited us over to a shop, and I remember, I'll never forget it, we walked in there and there was one of his old Geyser G2 race trucks that Cole drove. It was like seeing the coolest thing you could ever possibly see. We were so excited. And I was like, man, Craig, this has got to be just insane. How do you get into the sport? What does it cost? Or maybe don't tell me, I don't know. We just want to get in and get going. And Craig was really awesome. He was like, we want to sell the truck and we'll work with you guys. And we gave him a down payment. I wrote Craig a check, and Roller pulled a wad of cash out of his pocket, and we handed him our down payment. And we loaded that thing up and brought it up here to Montana, and we were just like, okay, let's find a race. Let's go race this thing.
Did I get any air? I was trying to get some dollars.
Did you get into second gear at all, or did you just had to run first the whole time? Ryan had a good buddy that set up the Yellowstone Off-Road Racing Series, the YOR Series. Turns out that Michael puts on a phenomenal event. That Yellowstone Off-Road Racing Series is just an absolutely fantastic event and a ton of fun. And so we said, what the heck, we'll go jump in a couple of these races. They didn't really have, there was a handful, maybe half dozen unlimited trucks, but certainly there wasn't any, there wasn't any Geyser Brothers unlimited G2 trophy trucks there. So we, we had an advantage, to say the least. So we figure we've driven this truck a couple times now. So, let's go cut our teeth. Let's go race an off-road Baja race. And, what race do you want to do? They're like, I don't know. I was like, well, let's go race the Min. Rick helped us, prep and get ready. And oh my gosh, we had no idea. The Mint 400. The fanfare, the trucks, and all the famous names and people you've heard of are down there, and here we got a small block G2, and we're like, all right, well, this is gonna get real fast, and so I qualified us, and it was probably mid-pack. I think I was probably 15th, so I didn't hate it, but certainly wanted to go faster, and then next day jumped in the truck and got a decent start, missed the first corner, just pure anxiety, pure adrenaline, blew right off the back of the first corner, and had to get back in line and get going again. And so we drove real hard. I drove for the first, it turned out it ended up being the first 300 miles. Ripped a front bumper off. I had to stop and sawzall the bumper off. Had a couple of flat tires that we changed. And there's no way to explain the physical fatigue of the Mint 400. Just pounding through those whoops and ups and down, left, right, and just keeping it together, and it's an absolute, the adrenaline wears off, and then you're left with, how am I going to get through the rest of this? Made it to the last pit, and I jumped out of the truck, and a lady there with the Mint, she's doing the live feed for the race, and she just shoves a mic in my face. She's like, "So driver change late in the race, what's going on?" And I'm like, a lot of whoops, big bumps. It's incredible. It's absolutely unbelievable. I don't even know. I'm like, oh, and she's like, wow, okay. Right now, the whoops now are swallowing trucks. Like, you're in and out of them. The roofs are gone. When you see them in front of you, they're that bad. It's unbelievable. Yeah, and I just kind of walked off and went into the motorhome and laid down, and I don't think I got up. I literally was just banged up, and I'll never forget it. Ryan gets in the truck and takes off, and he said later after he got out, he's like, about an hour into it, he's like, I'm not sure how much fun this is. He was just getting beat to death out there, and he managed to maintain our spot. I think maybe the People's truck got around us, and we ended up finishing, I think, 7th in our class and maybe 8th overall. So we realized we need more power. We need a big block. We were running a small block, and we're giving up a lot of speed, a lot of acceleration. And so, I started having conversations with Rick immediately, and he was just chuckling. He's like, okay, well, here you go. And so ended up buying we found a G6 spec truck, which turned out to be a great truck. And my goal was to find a big block and put it in that truck and have the latest version of a Geyser platform with a new big block in it. So we raced, first race Laughlin, and one of the best in the desert, Laughlin, and that was an absolute blast. I mean, so much fun. And in the spec class, I think we ended up 3rd after 2 days of racing, which we were tickled with. So we raced that a little bit, and then we actually found a G6 that had a big block in it, was ready to go, and so we sold the spec and bought the G6 that we have now, and bought a Dugan's big block and slid that in the truck, and oh boy, we got an absolute animal, absolute savage of a race truck now. So And so we got about 2 weeks before King of the Hammers. Really wanted to run that race. So I'm like, Rick, you think we can get this done? He's like, well, I think we can do it. So, Ricky McGeyser, man, he put that motor in there, had it together. I drove it over to Ray at Dugan's, and we dynoed it, got it tuned, dialed in, did a couple hot laps in the desert, made sure everything was working, and everything looked good. And so we loaded up, drove to King of the Hammers. What an experience that is. You turn the corner, anybody's been there, you turn the corner and there's 100,000 people all having a great time out in the desert. And I hadn't had time to pre-run. So I bought some notes from a guy, and I jumped in my Razor real quick and just ran around the qualifying lap just to get eyes on it. And we got set up and went out and qualified pretty good. We get out there and we're about halfway through a 40-mile qualifying lap and take a wrong turn, end up having to backtrack, cut across country, got back in line and got back on and going again and ended up running real strong. I think we qualified 7th, maybe top 10. And after our complete, just road trip in the middle of the qualifying lap, but we got it done. And so we were super excited about that, other than, I was just like, this is a big course and I have no idea what I'm about to get into. Well, here we are, King of the Hammers, first time out here. Very little pre-running. We had a chance to run the truck yesterday. Roller converted from a driver to a co-driver. We should do pretty good. Just take care of tires. We got to finish the race without getting out and changing tires. That would be ideal.
Yeah, you're doing that by yourself.
We took off and we were ripping, doing really good. We passed 2 or 3 trucks almost, out of in the first probably 30, 40 miles. And got into a real tight spot and was on somebody's bumper. I was so close, I was touching their bumper as we were going through the canyon, and I cut kind of to the inside. Unbeknownst, there was a real large rock in there, real tall, and went up on it and caught on one of my jacks. And I was trying to rock the truck back and forth to get off and was getting pretty close, and then the truck behind me that we just passed was, I'm sure, real excited about that. Wanted to help us out, I think, and gave us a big bump. And we knocked us off that rock. So we took off and we're flying again and we were good to go. In about 15, 20 more miles, I'm going, can you hear that? To my co-driver, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I think we're losing power steering. Sure enough, we were. I drove as long as I could in that rough terrain with no power steering, but anybody's done that knows you're not gonna keep any pace at all whatsoever. And we ended up finally getting that truck wedged into a rock. Couldn't get off of it, couldn't turn, couldn't do anything, and so we ended up stuck and had had a DNF, and that was racing, but heartbreaking. After that race, we got the truck back together, got everything dialed in, ready to go, and we wanted to race Vegas to Reno. So we, gathered up all our friends and family and everything else, and we drive down to Vegas. And Rick Geyser got the team, all got the truck prepped and ready. Exciting race, big race for us to be the first, long race.
Water dripping off the backside of my glass. No, that's the one you want. Mine's too dark.
And I had one of my buddies co-drive for me who had never co-driven at all, never even been around the truck at all. But he's, I knew he'd do great. He's a hell of an athlete. He's raced a lot of different things, dirt bikes and snowmobiles and everything else. And I knew he'd do phenomenal. I knew he'd understand momentum. I knew he'd understand what cornering would be like and what we could handle.
I know what you're talking about.
We strapped him in and we taught him how the seat belts work and how the harness works and everything else. And we threw Will Timberg in the passenger seat. You get a bunch of Montana guys going down to Vegas in August. Oh my gosh.
Didn't you want to put a race suit on?
I thought I was going to die out there. I mean, where that race starts, put a fire suit on. I mean, it had to be 110 when I got in the truck, and then you got to wait, 30 minutes probably before you even get started. The climate change is something. And so we try to stay ahead of the hydration, try to stay, keep it together, and qualified well there. I think we had a top 10 qualifying there, if not even a little better. Again, never done that course, never raced that, had no idea, bought some notes. Got lined up and off we went. We did great. We were ripping. We ran the first 250 miles maybe, and we were, right there front running on time. We were right there with the top three. Got to our driver transition at about 250 miles, jumped out. Ryan jumped in with Mikey Jones, his co-driver. And they took off, and every bit of good luck and things that went smooth for me just built up and stacked up and did not go smooth for Ryan. He took off and they had a flat fairly soon. They changed the flat, and then they got going again and had a power steering leak.
They get drifted down enough to break that union at the top. We lost all our power steering. So we plugged up both lines. The body's off the side of it right now. Should we just race it with no body on it, I'm guessing?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Power steering fluid in it right now.
Okay, so you guys gonna be moving again here pretty quick.
I think so, yeah. We only got passed by one guy so far.
Okay, all right, well.
And they limped into one of the pits. It was one of the pits we hadn't set up a crew for. That's what I love about this racing and the friendship and the brotherhood there. They pulled into a pit, we had nobody there. And they had no power steering.
Something, I don't know, just, yeah, oh.
Ryan, the driver, jumps out. He's running around, and these guys, the Tisco guys, were awesome. They came running over, and they're like, "Where's your pit?" And he's like, "I wasn't gonna stop. We don't have a pit." He's like, "Well, what's wrong?" He's like, we need to fix this power steering. And those guys just ran over and helped him. And they got that truck together, got it full of fluid again, and they jumped in and took off. They got behind a guy that had broken his femur, and he was stuck in the middle of the course, and they froze the course. You know, he had gone roughly the 150 miles. I was sitting at the next pit waiting to jump in and drive it to the finish line. And that pit was 10 miles from that spot. And they were the first guys behind him. And so they had to sit there. And the entire race, unlimited trophy trucks, then spec trucks, then everything behind them just stacked up in a single file line. And we were setting they had gone the 150 miles they were gonna go. And so I radioed Ryan, I'm like, "Ryan, you cannot pull in this pit right now. You're gonna get passed by 100 vehicles. Like, this is gonna be awful. You gotta just man up, brother. You gotta just power it hard here and put some distance on these guys." He takes off, and gives it hell. He's going like hell. He goes about 5 miles in flats and has to pull over, change a tire. And I think 25 trucks went by him. It was just awful. And so at that point we were like, okay, this is, we considered loading the truck. We were just defeated, in that moment. And he got the tire on it, and I went to the next pit, and we waited and waited and waited, and truck after truck after truck went by, and I was just like, I was talking to the guys, and I'm like, should we just load this truck? And they're like, it's your call, do what you want. And I was like, I looked at Will, and I was like, this is Vegas to Reno, man. You got to finish this race. We came a long ways, awful long ways. We're going to finish this damn race. So roller comes flying in. There's no hood on the truck. I mean, it looks like it's been through hell. And he jumps out, and we jump in the truck and take off. And now I'm driving as hard as I can, as fast as I can. And we managed to pass quite a few trucks. So we're getting into the dark. And one of our good buddies had been telling us we need our roof lights the whole time, and we're like, we don't need roof lights. We got lights in the front of the truck. We're fine. We're gonna finish in the dark, and when it's light out. And he's like, you need the lights, and he was right. He was 100% right, and we were dead wrong. And we get into the dark, and we go to flip on the lights, and it turns out our lights are pointing at the ground. So we got behind this other truck, and I tried to stay close to him, but in the dark, that's pretty brutal. Trying to ride in someone's dust, stay on top of them. They're going race pace, you're blind. And so we laid off of them and ended up limping it into a finish. And lo and behold, we ended up finishing 9th. Finishing that race was awesome. What an experience. And getting it all done, then we all loaded up. We're not a big high dollar team. We're just local guys that just have always wanted to race trucks. You don't have extra motors or extra trucks or we don't have extra anything, right? So we got one motor. We're waiting for that thing to get rebuilt. So we set our sights on the hammers, and luck would have it, our stuff wasn't ready. Sometimes things just happen, and we're like, well, I guess that means we just need to go race San Felipe. Let's go race Baja. And I've had so many people be like, huh? Do you know what that's like? I'm like, no, I don't, but you know, people do it. I mean, it sounds like a ton of fun, and I can't wait. I'm super excited. I'm nervous, but I'm excited. I can't wait to go give it hell.